Good evening, everyone. This is Anita from Indian American TV and Happiness Factors. And today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Greg Tanaka from Palo Alto City Council, who is running from the US Congress District 16. He's also a tech entrepreneur and multifaceted and has a lot of knowledge about the crypto as well as the Bitcoin and other currencies. So without further much ado, I would like to welcome Greg and let him tell something about himself.
Thank you, Nita. Thank you for having me, and really pleasure to be part of this. So, Anita, as you mentioned, I'm on the Palo Alto City Council. I've been on the City Council since 2017. So I got reelected in 2020, and shortly after my reelection, several of my supporters asked for me to look at running for U.S. Congress, and I wasn't that wasn't something I was actually thinking about. But one of the things that made me consider this is the fact that the current incumbent, who will be 80 this year, she's been pushing a lot of anti-crypto initiatives. And I'm in the crypto industry, and I think that crypto has the potential to actually increase the financial efficiency of this country. And the second thing is that as an entrepreneur, I think innovation is the lifeblood of this country. I think it's really important to ensure that there's a lot of startups with Silicon Valley, right? I think entrepreneurship is what enabled us to have a strong economy like we have today. And she's been pushing for basically increased taxation on startups, which is really crazy because, for a lot of startups when you first start off, it's really tough, right? So
Yes, it is.
you don't need extra taxes when you're a startup. You need the roadblocks being removed.
I
And
totally agree with you because I'm a startup founder myself, and you have basically little cash flow and so much things to do. So
yeah,
the more help you can get, the better.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of crazy, in terms of so basically the proposals that she has is that uh, you have to amortize the R&D spend. So let's say your startup has $1 million in engineering expenses and $1 million in revenue. You have to amortize the R&D expense over 5 years. And that means the first year you would have $800,000 in taxes to pay, which you don't actually have the money for. You don't actually have that real
Yeah.
income. And so it's really tough. So I think we need to have um, people that are more tech savvy and not so out of touch with the public. And so
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why I'm running.
no, that's really amazing. And also, if they put so much taxes on entrepreneurs, then they will either move out of California or they will stop being entrepreneurs, which will hurt the economy in the long run,
No,
right?
absolutely. I mean, that this is one of the big concerns. Like in Palo Alto, we had Tesla move the headquarters out. We had Palantir move. We had a lot of amazing companies and people starting to move out of California, and it makes me wonder about whether Silicon Valley will stay Silicon Valley. And I think we can't we can't take innovation for granted. I think we have to foster it. We have to help it. So many places in the world want to have the kind of innovation that we have today.
No, I totally agree with you. And unless they make it more conducive to do the innovation and to create new products, then people gradually it will fade away, and that will be bad for the economy in general, and of course bad for California. And I totally
Absolutely.
agree. Like you mentioned that Tesla and Palantir have moved out. Even Oracle moved the headquarters.
Yeah. HP. Yeah.
Yeah, and Apple has a big presence now in Texas. So does Facebook. And sooner or later, they are also going to move out if things continue this
Yeah.
way because of high tax.
I think people take the tech scene in our area for granted. They think it'll
Uh-huh.
always be here, but it's not true, right? There's so many other places in the world where people go, especially with this whole work from home. And so if you don't foster innovation, if you don't foster business, if you don't foster a strong economy, it's very likely to go somewhere else.
I totally agree because also I heard that John Chambers has opened a big tech center in West Virginia.
Hmm.
So right now that's a booming for startups and entrepreneurs and some other places as well. So yeah, we have to make sure that we keep the entrepreneurs here and keep the economy growing. I totally agree. So my
Yeah.
other question is more related to immigration because I don't know if you are a first generation immigrant or a second generation immigrant, but America is made up of immigrants, right?
Yeah.
So what are your different things you're going to do for immigrants if you win the city council
Yeah.
or the Congress?
Yeah, so from my dad's side, I'm fourth generation Japanese American, and then from my mom's side, Chinese American. So my great grandfather came here in 1880, and then my mom came here as a college student. And I think the current plan. So I have a tech company, and we hired some amazing people out of like top universities like Stanford, Berkeley, etc. And some of these folks couldn't get H-1B visas. And these are people who got PhDs out of Stanford, Berkeley, really great places, hardworking, smart people. And yet, after they got their great education and worked for a few years in a company, they couldn't get their H-1B visas. And to me, it's insanity that we have these really talented people and we make them go back home. It doesn't make sense. I think it's really important that we have talented, hardworking people in our country, especially if they're educated. So I almost feel like rather than having those people like being pushed out, I think we want talented people here, right? At the same time, if you look at immigration, like from the south of the border, right? To me, that's a kind of a different story because there are a lot of people coming in with zero documentation, just walking over the border. And to me, it seems like it would be better to have maybe some sort of work permit system versus just a free for all, right? That's
No, I
happening right
totally
now.
agree with you because if they don't check any documentation, then the bad people will be the first one to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why the law and order situation, that might be one of the reasons why it's become so bad in the recent years, right?
Yeah,
So
last night we had a council meeting. So I was up really late. So I've got a bit of a cough now. But we had a report on the police and the police talked about like in Palo Alto, we have record high arson, right? We have like record high property crimes. We have all these kind of things which, for Palo Alto for decades, we've been known as one of the safest cities.
yes.
But recently crime has spiked, even though the amount of people in our city has dropped. And a lot of it's because we've been very soft on crime, right? We haven't, to me, the duty of a government is to keep people safe.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people out there who say, oh, let's defund the police. Let's, criminal rights, right? They think about the criminal rights. They don't think so much about the victim rights. But, there's like a condo complex in Palo Alto, Altair Walk, and they've been robbed every single week for 2 years, every single week, right? And that's intolerable, right? I mean, the duty of a government is to make sure that people feel safe.
Yeah, that's so true.
And there's situations where people can walk into a drugstore, load up on up to $900 or $950 worth of stuff and walk right out, and it's causing retailers to fail.
Yes.
It's showing total disregard for the law, and so that kind of stuff, we can't allow that kind of stuff to happen. There has to be some boundaries. And I sympathize with people who are homeless and people that had really tough upbringings, but I don't think that means that you can let people run amok. I mean, in Palo Alto, there was one of my son's classmates was crossing the street on University Avenue, 10 o'clock in the morning, near the Apple store, right? University Avenue is a major street in Palo Alto, and this homeless woman jumps on her back and slits her throat and starts stabbing her, right?
Slits her throat. That's so bad.
Yeah, it is such a
broad
brutal
daylight.
crime. Yeah, 10 o'clock in the morning, right? It's not like some dark alley or midnight. University Avenue, which is the main street of Palo Alto, and that kind of stuff is inexcusable, right? It's not something we should allow, and so I think we need to hold much more firm in terms of holding people accountable. Like this person that committed this crime, she had a warrant for arrest already because she was trying to kill her infant. So they were trying to pick her up for attempted murder. But there are folks on council who believe that we don't want to arrest homeless people. But to me, if the homeless person is dangerous, if they committed a felony or accused of committing a felony and there's a warrant for their arrest, they need to be arrested, right? We can't just leave them on the streets because otherwise you get like these brutal
encourage
crimes.
more people, right? More criminals to pretend they are homeless.
Yeah,
no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Like even when we, if we make the laws so friendly to criminal activity, like allowing people to rob under a certain amount or not arresting people, even if they commit crime just because they're homeless, then the bad people will be the first ones to take advantage of it, and that
Yeah.
will create more worse law and order, more fear, and more people to move out, and more criminal minds to become more
Yeah.
active, because they know
Yeah.
that they are not going to get punished. They just have to play the right cards, pretend they are homeless or something else. And I
Yeah.
totally agree. Like, even the people who are coming, like, if they, all the papers should be checked, or even for the homeless, they need to know who is there, right? And
Yeah.
instead of like saying they won't be tried for crime, they should give them some rehab or something where they can learn a skill and maybe get gainfully employed or have a better life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one reason why we have so many arsons in Palo Alto is because the homeless have set up camp inside of our garages. So these are garages we spend 40, $50 million on, and they basically put tarps between the
Yeah.
parking stalls, and they
Uh-huh.
set up like condos there. And to me, um, there are people now that are afraid to park in those garages because they're homeless encampments, right?
Yeah.
And to me, um, I grew up relatively poor. My dad never finished high school, and I had a single parent growing up, and um, so I know what it's like to go hungry when you go to school,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
in a really tough community. But to me, um, if we have laws, we should enforce them. And um, also, I think that I think um, I think we want to make sure that people aren't living on the streets, right? I think that's a really important
Yes.
thing. So we have to figure out the root causes, and homelessness is actually more the symptom, not the cause.
Yes.
Um, some portion of homeless, like a minority portion of it, is caused by economic reasons because of it's too expensive for housing, or they don't make enough money. But a large portion of it is actually mental health, and so we have to look at the different causes. So it's mental health, some of it's economic, some of it's drug use, some of it's youth who ran away from home or got kicked out. So you got to address each of these problems separately in order to actually solve homelessness.
Yes, and provide solutions which are sustainable and in the benefit of the whole society, not just one particular arm of the society. I totally agree. And also, like you mentioned, like, I mean, whoever asks for defunding the police must be the ones who are supporting the criminals, right? Because
Yeah.
it's common sense. Like, even a layman like me understands. Like, if you don't have law and order and police, then the crime will increase, right?
Yeah, actually, it was funny at the 2020 city
Mhm.
council election. There was one candidate who was running on defunding the police, and what was interesting
Mhm.
um, was her motorcycle got stolen, and after her motorcycle got stolen, she was less enthusiastic about defunding the police.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even I've heard like several of the celebrities and other people who supported defunding the police, and once their house got attacked, that's then they were
yeah,
calling the police.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the other big issue is a lot of anti-Asian hate crimes. So, like in San Francisco, I think the anti-Asian hate crimes went up 536%, like a massive increase.
Wow.
And I mean, this is from last year, right? So it's a
Uh-huh.
quite a big increase, and which is really tragic because especially in Asian cultures, we're taught to respect our elders,
Yes.
and so when our elders are being preyed upon, it doesn't feel right, right? We want to make sure that people feel safe. People shouldn't have to carry a borrowed mace, right? Or it just seems like we want a safe society, right? We want a safe civil society. I
Yes.
think that's really critical.
Yeah, I know. But San Francisco, I mean, I used to have office. Even like walking from the office to the bath station, sometimes you meet very crazy people. So I always carried a mace or the thing that makes the noise,
Yeah,
because it was never safe. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it has gone worse after the COVID and after defunding the police, because I heard like nowadays it's become like, if you don't get attacked, then it's
yeah,
like something different. But usually, like, people's cars are getting broken much more regularly, and
yeah,
they are getting like have to face different situations much more regularly, or getting ambushed or attacked. Like, so I even stopped like going to San Francisco, the city, on my own alone, because I don't feel safe
yeah,
anymore, because my friends have been had to face different tough situations when they went there. So
yeah. So I was in San Francisco on Friday,
uh-huh.
and I was going to the Harbor View restaurant near the Embarcadero Center,
Mhm.
and there's this elderly Asian couple. They're
Uh-huh.
selling like trinkets on the table,
Mhm.
and some person had just I could see them like maybe 20 feet away. They
Yeah.
robbed them of the cash box,
Oh,
right?
that's bad.
Right. It's
Uh-huh.
just, and I just felt so bad for them, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Yeah, and they were trying to remove the DA of San Francisco. I'd heard sometime back. I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
what
yeah,
happened
yeah, yeah.
finally, but yeah,
Hopefully, yeah. I think the recall is coming up soon, but
yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who really feel strongly about criminal rights,
Yes.
and but to me, victim rights are also important,
No,
right?
victim rights are more important than criminal rights because,
Yeah,
see, as a society, if we focus more on criminal rights, then more people will become criminals,
yeah,
right? But if we make the law and order strong enough, then the society will be safe for everyone,
exactly.
not
Yeah,
just criminals. So I think that's very important. Otherwise, again, like so many people are now trying to go to Texas or Florida or other states where they have better law and order, right? So more and
yeah,
more people, and if the more of the tax-paying people move out, like, and then it will be more of a problem for
yeah.
California.
I
So
don't think, I mean,
taxes,
you
yeah.
go to some of these other places, you don't see as many homeless people in Texas or
No,
Florida, right?
no,
I mean, it's,
you don't. And not this crazy also. I mean, I was in Florida recently, a few weeks ago, and people seem much more happy, maybe because they're outside more
yeah,
than here.
yeah,
And also, like, they were more friendly. And I didn't see anyone who appeared like that high, or at least in the areas I went. I, of course, didn't go all over, but
sure.
I would say it was much safer for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
felt
mean,
very nice. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you see these violent carjackings where someone's like at a red light and they get carjacked, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was emailing a friend, and she lives in SF, and she wrote back about how her Cadillac converter got stolen, and then someone broke into a car, and it's just like, this is all within the past few months, and it's just she's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to San Francisco right now,
No,
and
it's I mean, San Francisco, they were always breaking into car. At least I have had several friends
yeah,
whose houses and cars got broken into. But now it's also happening like in the North Valley, which used to be such a safe area.
yeah,
So, and I also heard that these people who are breaking in, they're very sophisticated. They disable the cameras for half an hour before.
hmm.
And I think a few nights ago, I read on Nextdoor that the whole street, 30 cars, one after the other, 30 together, imagine that, got attacked.
Actually, that same thing in Palo Alto. We had the same thing where there's a dark street in North downtown
Uh-huh.
where there's a bunch of cars parked, and someone just went down and smashed all the windows.
Yeah.
Spent maybe 10 seconds per car looking for some valuables.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's just crazy. I mean, the violation that people feel, the economic damage,
Yeah.
it's not right.
That's not right. And also, right now they know that there are not that many police left, so they won't be caught.
Yeah,
And looks like these people are very, very, I mean, smart enough to even disable the camera so that they don't get caught. So they
yeah,
must have some highly sophisticated techniques, right? Usually, otherwise the camera will record. But yeah, so, and I also feel, I mean, of course, not just me, but overall, everyone feels like the crime rate has gone up quite a lot since the last 2 3 years, right?
yeah,
You said it was
definitely.
safe before. So what are you going to do about it? to
Well,
make the to make the people feel more safe and crime become as low as before.
yeah, so I think one thing is in Palo Alto, I pushed for refunding the police. And so actually I was successful in that.
That's
I pushed for a crime to become a crime prevention to be one of the priorities of the city
yes.
and to also refund the police, right? To actually
Oh, that's nice. Congrats.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we increase the police presence.
Hmm.
But I think the other part is this, we need some help on the prosecution side
Yeah.
because there's a there's a even when people commit crimes, there's a lack of prosecution. I mean, this is why the DA in San Francisco is
Uh-huh.
getting recalled. So we
Hmm.
have to also make sure that there's penalties, right? So, severe enough penalties to act as a deterrent to some of these
Yeah.
crimes, because like that $950 limit basically encourages people to steal because even if they're caught, there's no consequence of
That's
their
true.
action.
Hmm.
And so, if you go to San Francisco, there's just so many different retail shops that have this shut down because
Hmm.
they can't afford to have someone walking in there and stealing $900 worth of stuff and walking out.
Yeah.
Even here in Palo Alto, we have at the Stanford Shopping Center, we have these flash robberies where people come in, like 10 people all at once, they all steal something and run out in like 30 seconds. And you can't operate a business like that. People don't feel
That's true.
safe.
Hmm.
So to me, I think staffing up to more reasonable levels, having tougher laws,
Yes.
uh, and um, and taking swift action. It's kind of like the broken window effect. If you let some of these crimes happen, and it attracts more crime. And so
Yes.
what you have to do is you need to nip it in the bud. One of the things I also pushed for here in Palo Alto was something called license plate readers, which would basically, because a lot of people use a stolen car or use the same kind of car when they go to commit a crime. And so this is a way for us to also find the criminals faster and figure out who it is. So I think those are some of the steps that we have to do. On the federal level, I think one of the big things is, I don't know if you know this, but if you look at the prosecution rate of anti-Asian hate crime, the prosecution rate of anti-Asian hate crime is much, much lower than of other ethnicities. So you look at like Jewish American or African Americans, the prosecution rate, the rate of prosecution is much, much lower for Asian Americans. And I don't think that's right. I think we need to correct that. So on the federal level, that's something we need to correct, because I don't know why Asian Americans should get less rights than everyone else. To me, it should be, equal, right? I'm not asking for like favorable laws. I'm saying it should be equal. We should be treated equal to everyone else.
Yeah, crime is a crime. Doesn't matter against whom, right?
Yeah.
So the criminals should get punishment, and I totally agree. Like there shouldn't be a limit that if they steal less than 950, they don't get persecuted, because then they will make sure they steal just less than that.
That's exactly what they do, right? It's just, I mean, you can go to YouTube and watch the videos of people walk. I mean, it's like only California has this insanity, right?
Yeah. So I think we need to definitely change that, or maybe even like make them pay back or do the work for whatever amount they stole. That will, I think, serve them well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, something like that, even if they're not put behind bars or something, because unless they know that they are going to get caught and they are going to be persecuted, they are going to keep on doing it, right? And it will be very, very detrimental to the small businesses as well as to the economy in general, because I heard in San Francisco, so many retailers, they close shop. Lots of Walgreens, CVS, even Victoria's Secret, and some of the other stores, they all closed because they were attacked again and again and stolen again and again. They couldn't.
Well, not just that, but you hear about people, good Samaritans, who try to prevent these crimes, and then they get prosecuted. It's like, what the heck, right?
Yeah.
Like
something
I mean,
is wrong then.
Yeah, they're trying to do some good, and yet they get prosecuted, right? So that doesn't make sense, right?
No, it doesn't. Actually, they should be rewarded so that more people can become the good Samaritans, and make sure that the people who really commit the crimes are the ones who get caught. And at least if they get persecuted, then someone else will think twice before doing that. So that's very important. And what are your thoughts on on Hindu American rights? I know you are not might not be that well versed with Hindu American rights, but with the fake news and other things happening, there have been lots of anti-Hindu activities going on, or crimes going on, and usually it never gets the limelight because it doesn't get covered in the mainstream media most of the time. And so how will you make sure that they are also get the equal lawful treatment and like everyone else? And what are your thoughts on that? Because many of our viewers are from India, so they would definitely like to know.
Yeah. So, my view is this. If you look at like India, right, it's one of the big allies of the United States. It's one of the most populous countries in the United States. So you look at like India versus China, right? China, we have a bit of an antagonistic relationship somewhat, right? Not as bad as Russia, but with India, it's a democracy. And so it's a democratic government. We have so many smart people who come here from India who are hardworking, have built amazing companies, have done amazing things. And I personally think the way we have our immigration system right now is a little bit discriminatory, because for places like India or China, it's like so much harder to come here than from, let's say, England or Canada. And it's a little bit racist in my mind. So I think there should be some fairness there. I in terms of foreign policy wise, I don't quite understand why the United States doesn't try to cultivate a strong relationship with India, because it's a free democracy. They speak English, right? So I mean, there's a lot going for it, right?
Yes.
We've outsourced a tremendous amount of work there as well. So they've been a good partner. So to me, I think we want to foster partnerships with people who are not antagonistic to our country, right? And for the people that live here, unfortunately, even though Indian Americans, Hindus have done amazing things in this country, if you look at like how many crimes are caused by, Hindus or Indian Americans here, um, they're like a model citizen, right?
Yeah.
They don't commit any crimes. They work
Try
crazy
to live
hard.
peacefully. Yeah.
They live peacefully, right?
Yeah.
They
Give back to the society as well.
they've done so much, right? And so there's not like the gigantic burden, right? If in fact, if it's just the opposite. So to me, why would you not want to um, why would you not want to um, be more supportive, right? And same thing, right? I mean, when I talk about anti-Asian hate crimes, it also include Indian Americans, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think discrimination in general is really bad. But the problem is that, and I say Asian, and Asia is kind of like this label that's given to like, huge continents, subcontinents,
Yeah.
right? But um, in general, uh, Asian Americans are kind of known as model citizens, right? We generally do good things, but we keep our heads down and our mouths shut, and we don't get that involved politically, at least here in this country. There's some of us have, but a lot of us haven't, and so we tend not to get the attention or the voice that we should get. And so I think that's something that needs to be improved, right? I think that uh, discrimination in general is not good.
Yes.
And I think Asians in general, so, whether it's from people from India or people from China or from, any of the countries out there, I think even though they probably are one of the highest contributors to society and lowest takers of society, they it's like we I think our rights are not really well represented, right? I mean, Asian Americans are only, I think, 3% of U.S. Congress right now, even though population-wise, I think we're like 7, almost 8%. In Santa Clara County, we are 40%, 40% of the population. We're the largest segment of the population. In Palo Alto, we are, I think, 35%. We're also the largest segment of the population in Palo Alto. And yet, like I was on Palo Alto City Council, my colleagues were looking at racism against Black and brown people. And I asked that we also look at racism against Asian Americans, because I hear all about all these, Hindus or Chinese or, these people who are getting discriminated against for no good reason. And my colleagues, right, this is in a very progressive city, went back to my motion. They didn't think there was a problem. They think that, this is not a issue. But to me, it just shows a lack of voice, right? We don't have a voice in this area, and so we need to improve it. And so, anyways, I am, I used to have an office in Hyderabad, so it's for my company, and so there's a lot of smart, talented people there. And to me, it's like this. It's a huge population, billion people, right? To me, it seems like you would want to build strong alliances there.
Yes. No, and I agree. And thank you for thinking about the Asian Americans as well, and the Hindus and the Indians also, because most of the time I think they used to be really quiet because they thought no one will listen to them and they'll get into trouble. But now finally they are waking up and speaking up and making sure that whoever we select represents our rights also and represents us also, not just someone else. And so we get the equal footing and we keep on contributing to the society as a whole. And you're right, like most of the Asians who either come from China or from India are very high level, because only those people get the visas. Other people don't
So
get the visas.
it's like a high pass filter, right? So the people that do come here, they're incredibly talented, right?
Yes.
Incredibly hardworking. And so like we get the best of the best people here, and then yet, we have some H-1B policies which are just crazy, where like what country trains highly hardworking, highly talented people and then sends them back home? Who does that? Like we should do just the opposite. In fact, if you come here for an advanced degree, we should almost require that you stay here for a while versus go back home.
Give back, contribute for
give back, right? So I mean, it was a heartbreak when I saw some of my folks have to go back to India or China. It makes no sense. Zero sense.
Yeah, so they should be given some, I would say, perks so that they stay and contribute to the society here also.
Definitely.
And of course,
definitely.
many people want to stay. Some might want to go back, but depends on what their preference is. But at least they can contribute with their high level of education and talent, and that will make the economy here much better and the country
Yeah,
here much
definitely.
better, right?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, if you look at all the entrepreneurs that
Uh-huh.
come as immigrants, and you look how many jobs they create and how much
Yes.
economic value they create. I mean, so like my ancestors come from Japan,
Mhm.
and I think one problem that Japan has is they don't have that many startups, right?
Yes.
You know, the big benefit we have in our country we have is all these startups, right? And a lot of these startups are created by entrepreneurs, from that are immigrants.
Like you and me, we both have
Yeah,
startups, right?
exactly. Exactly. And that's something that Japan doesn't have, right? They have a lot of really old companies, companies that are like 100 years or 1,000 years old, like
Yeah.
Mitsubishi, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they have these like large dead trees and they don't give space for new trees to grow, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't have the level of entrepreneurship that we have in this country.
Yes.
And we're fortunate to have immigrants who will, work hard, come here with nothing, and create incredible value for the country. And I think we should be grateful for that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I'm looking forward to having more immigrants in the office so that more of our voices can be heard.
Yeah.
So, and also, I'm glad you mentioned about that mental wellness for the homeless, as well
Oh,
as
yeah.
I feel everyone needs it. And that's why I have the Startup Happiness Factors, where we are building holistic mental wellness solutions at every level, available 24 by 7, some of them like the
Yeah.
app and the courses, and we have others which can be booked for a session for a coaching or a training and stuff like that. So what are top 3 things you would say you would do once elected to Congress?
Good question.
Mhm.
To me, one of the most important things that we do is uh, I mean, there's just so many issues, but I think one of the big things we should do is really solve the inflation problem.
Yeah.
So right now we have record high inflation. It's been highest since 1980.
Uh-huh.
So it's the highest in a lot of people's lifetime.
Yeah.
And inflation is incredibly regressive. It actually hurts people on the bottom the most, right? Because these people are people who get most of the compensation in cash and have most of the wealth in cash. Um, rich guys like Tim Cook of Apple, right? CEO of Apple, he $1 salary, everything's in stock, right? So he doesn't feel the effects of inflation as much.
Yeah.
But you look at the Uber drivers, you look at um, just all the people who kind of live month to month. Inflation, it hurts the poorest the most.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere where like the average American family lost something like $40,000 because of the inflation, how their wealth
Mhm.
has essentially evaporated. It's kind of like an illegal tax.
Mhm.
And I think, unfortunately, uh, our elected leaders, like the one, like the current elected leader in my area, she's, kind of a tax and spend kind of
Mhm.
person, right? I mean, and the issue is that, um, when you're spending more than you actually produce, right? When the amount of money you're printing, right? Because the only way they're funding this is actually by printing money. When you do this quantitative easing, so to speak, what happens is this creates massive amounts of inflation,
Mhm.
and so we see inflation in everything, gas prices. I mean, and people talk about the gas prices already went up
Yeah.
even before the invasion of Ukraine,
Oh,
and
yeah. It used to be actually $2 under Trump. Now it's $6.
yes. So, and this happened even before Russia invaded Ukraine. That's
Yes.
that's not like,
Yeah. It's before Russian
inflation.
invasion.
Inflation happened before the Ukraine war, right? So it's not.
Yeah. It's more for printing the extra dollars, the trillions
Yeah,
of dollars we printed, not for the war.
yeah. So if you look at the amount of dollars in circulation, so 40% of the dollars in circulation, so $4 out of $10
Mhm.
were printed in the past 2 years. Okay, just imagine that.
Yeah.
So it's when there's more dollars chasing the same amount of goods or less, I mean, you get massive inflation. And the problem with inflation is that it causes a lot of distortions. It causes a loss of productivity. It causes a debasement of the currency. So right now, the US dollar is a global reserve currency. But
Yeah.
as we debase our currency, you have countries like China that used to buy a
Yeah.
lot of our treasury bills. But who wants to buy treasury bills when inflation is like 8-9%, and the yield on the treasury bill is like 1, maybe 2%? So you have like negative real interest rates. So who wants to buy our debt? And so what happens is that debt just gets stacked onto our balance sheet. We have this massive ballooning, because of the quantitative easing, this ballooning balance sheet of debt. And what that means, and the only way we can service this debt now is by printing more money, right? So we have this crazy inflationary vicious cycle that's happening now. And instead of when there's full employment and when there's limited amount of supply, instead of printing more money and doing all this quantitative easing, what we should have been doing is taking our foot off the gas pedal, right? Yeah. You want to when you're at full capacity, if you just pour more money in, it just creates more inflation. And so that's why we have this massive inflation. And so, we were lucky to have relatively low inflation for many decades, but by this total debasement, this illegal regressive inflation tax that everyone has had to pay, it's destroying our economy. It's hurting our economic productivity, because really the only way you increase the wealth of the country, the only way, is not by printing money, it's by increasing their productivity. So we've got to be focused on increasing the productivity. That means
encouraging people to open more companies, like entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that's one thing that really infuriates me, is that it's so hard to do a startup. I've done like 4 startups. It's so hard to do a startup. I mean, you put everything online.
Yes.
You can pay way less than you would working for someone else. And for people to be throwing stones in the road, these boulders in the road in front of entrepreneurs, is so wrong. It makes no sense. We should be doing the opposite. And yet, we have people in office who had no business experience, people who've never had to sign the front of a check. They've only signed the back of a check. And so they make really bad decisions, right? They have incredibly anti-business business policies that hurt the economy, that lower the productivity of the country, right? And that's decreasing the wealth. So there's a lot of focus on, let's slice up and dissect the pie into smaller chunks and fight over how we allocate the shrinking pie. Really, what we should be doing is focus on growing the pie. You grow the pie by having entrepreneurs who kill themselves working crazy hours to figure out a better way of doing something, right? You increase the pie by increasing the education standards, right? Some people here talk about like, oh, let's dumb down education. Let's go to the lowest common denominator. You want to do just the opposite. You want to actually have a stronger, more educated populace, right? What we should be doing is investing in R&D, right? So that we actually have fundamental technologies that can increase the productivity of this country. But so often right now, a lot of elected leaders are doing just the opposite. 30 years ago, our country used to be near the top in terms of educated populace, right? It used to be the clear #1. And now we're like the middle of the pack. I mean, how are we going to remain competitive if we don't have a highly educated population?
No, totally agree. I mean, it makes common sense. I don't even know what those people are thinking, right? Who are not encouraging innovation and not encouraging entrepreneurship, because that's how the economy grows.
Yeah. I mean,
they are with the big companies, or they don't know what they are doing.
Yeah, but to me, it's sad because, like, for instance, like here in Palo Alto, some people have been pushing for getting rid of algebra in junior high, or like saying that math is racist, or
how can math be racist? It doesn't care if you are Asian or American or anyone else. It's the same math, right?
Yeah, to me, math is math, right? So we need to have stronger STEM education, right? We need to have better teachers, and so this kind of weirdness of dumbing down education, right? Going to the lowest common denominator, it doesn't make sense. That's not what you want to do. Is that you actually want to personalize education, right? Because with technology, we can actually increase the efficiency of education. We can actually personalize it for every student, and that's how you do better. Instead, like in Palo Alto, they were talking about like, oh, let's put the smartest kid with the dumbest kid, and so that neither one of them are very satisfied, right?
Yeah.
To me, no. What you should do is you should personalize the education, because some people are really good at one thing, not so good at another thing. If you personalize it, everyone could win. You have a much more educated populace. But unfortunately, there's this. I don't know. I think there's there's some trends that are heading in the wrong direction, and sometimes our elected leaders are supporting this instead of really thinking about what is the right thing to do for the society.
Yeah. No, it's very important to have leaders who think for the society, not just for whatever the trend is, right? Or themselves. So, yeah, it's very, very important. That's a very good point you have brought up about the economy as well as about the education system. What else do you stand for?
Um, so I think freedom of speech is actually really important. I
Hmm.
think that that this is the foundation of our country, right? So I don't think we want people to be silenced, right? I think this is what made our country unique. You know, it was in our constitution is so value is so important.
Hmm.
So I think we want to. I mean, that's one thing I do. I hold office hours every Sunday for my city council office,
Nice.
and I talk to everyone, even people
Mhm.
I strongly disagree with.
So
And the
anyone
reason
who
why,
has a question, they can call you on Sunday. What time?
absolutely, yeah. And people call me and people challenge me and people tell
Uh-huh.
me I'm wrong. And to me, it's important to hear those perspectives, right?
Yes.
And I know sometimes there's this cancel culture where they want to silence people they don't agree with. And
Hmm.
to me, it is not right. You actually want to hear all opinions, right? In
Yes.
fact, I learned the most from people I disagree with, actually. So I I don't agree with some of this trend to kind of silence speech. I think we want to encourage speech, right? I mean, this is something that
That's
the
so true.
current
Like the cancel culture is not
yeah,
good.
the cancel culture, yeah. So the current representative,
Hmm.
the current representative here is 80 years old, and she's been pushing to um, to ban certain news networks that she doesn't agree with, right? And
That's
to
not
me,
good.
that is
Yeah.
so undemocratic. That's
Yeah.
first of all, I think that's unconstitutional, right?
Oh,
I
it
think
is.
that
And you need to hear all points of view. Then only you'll get a wholesome view, right?
yeah. So
Hmm.
she was trying to like um take Fox News off like so you know people think Fox News is political and maybe it is, but still
See,
it's a
every
voice.
news is political, but you need to hear both sides to make an
Yeah.
educated
But
decision,
but but
right?
it, like why you know she was trying to get all the Comcast and all the people who hold these uh news outlets trying to ban the ones that she doesn't like. And I mean that's just wrong, right? That's that
No, that's not
we
right at all.
yeah. And so I mean, what if they try to ban liberal news outlets,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that would also be wrong. And so,
That will be
I,
more like communism that you only let
yes,
one trend of thought to go through, right?
yeah, we should be able to openly debate
Mhm.
ideas, right? And that's how we get better ideas is by debating them. And so I strongly disagree with that idea um, of just um, silencing ideas you disagree with. That just doesn't make sense, right? And I
That's
don't
so true.
believe
Yeah.
in silencing news outlets. I think that's just wrong. And so when the current congresswoman was trying to do that, I just thought that was just so wrongheaded. It makes no sense.
Yeah, then that will dumb down people even more and more radical also because they
Yeah,
only know one point of view, right? So
exactly.
you have to have a more flexible and more wholesome approach to get the real picture and also to really understand
Yeah,
the issues from all sides, not
yeah,
just one side, right?
yeah,
No, I totally agree with you. So
yeah.
any parting thoughts before we are running at the end of the hour right now for
Yeah,
this?
no problem. Yeah. You know, I think the other thing is I think free trade's a good thing. So the current representative, she's the number one recipient of a big pharma. So she's been trying to ban like drugs coming in from other countries
Uh-huh.
and putting tariffs on them. And so like my mom, she's a diabetic, you
Uh-huh.
know, and you know, so insulin's pretty expensive. You know, my uncle died of AIDS. AIDS drugs are really expensive.
Mhm.
So for people that need, I was actually canvassing this weekend. I was talking to one person, and her mom has Crohn's disease,
Mhm.
and it's $20,000, right? And
Oh,
yet the current representative, um, because so much of her campaign funds come from big pharma, she's trying to like throw up tariffs and barriers of generics coming to this country. And to me, once the patents expire, it should be free market, right? We should let the free market. And so that, and it just seems like this corruption to be, um, it's one thing to take the donation, which is legal, but it's another thing, in my mind, it's kind of corrupting if you're using that um, to make decisions, which I think are hurting the little people, right? The people that need it most. Like my
yes.
mom's retired, right? I mean, she can't afford really expensive medication,
Yeah.
and so
Medication should not be expensive because people only take it when they need it, right?
yeah,
The doctor
exactly.
prescribes it.
And to do that to stay in office,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't seem right to me, right? So that's one of my personal motivations for running. Is just I feel that um, you need someone that actually will serve the people, right? Instead of the people serving the congressperson, it should be the other way around, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to take corruption out of the system. That's really important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And looks like you mentioned, she's as with the big pharma, maybe she's with the big companies. That's why she's not encouraging the innovation or the entrepreneurship and trying to put roadblocks, because then the big companies will fund more. But again, that will overall even hurt the big companies in the long run, because the innovation will go down, the economy will go
Yeah,
down. So overall,
absolutely.
everyone
Absolutely.
suffers, right? Whereas we need the good education, we need the good innovation and entrepreneurship, and we need the cost of the medications to be reasonable enough that people who need it can afford it without
Exactly.
breaking their bank account, right? And still have a good quality of life, especially the retired people who have worked their whole life and now they need to have a good life, right?
Well, I think to be honest, I think that's going to be a lot of retired people really vote. They're very politically active, and I tell you, the retired folks have been impacted heavily by inflation. A lot of them are on fixed income. As
That's
inflation is
true. Yeah.
going to headed towards double digit now, um, this might cause a lot of trouble for you know, the people who are spending money spending money like crazy, like creating a lot of inflation, because everyone's paying for it, right? It doesn't seem like everyone is paying for this wasteful government spending,
That's true.
and it's going to. I think some people are gonna, some of the people are gonna get booted, right? Some of the companies are gonna get booted, right? Because you're supposed to be helping the people, right? Not doing some sort of illegal tax on them.
No, I totally agree. And so, viewers, now you know what Greg stands for, and he stands for the immigrants, he stands for the innovation, for the entrepreneurship, for the drug cost being low, for the inflation being low, and the education being good. So, with that,
Exactly.
if you have one liner you want to share,
Yeah, so I can position myself as legislator for the digital age, because
uh-huh.
so much of what we're dealing with is technology and harnessing technology and trying to use that to increase the productivity of this country. So Anita, thank you so much for having me, and I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate your time. And can you share your website where people can
Yeah,
find more about you?
it's just gregtanaka.org.
Okay,
So
so it's first
first
name
thing,
and it's first last name .org, right?
yep.
Yeah. And you can also find Happiness Factors at happinessfactors.com and connect with us on social media as well as on our YouTube channel. And Greg, do you also have a
Yeah.
social media YouTube channel?
Twitter is just simply Greg Tanaka, first name, last name.
Uh-huh.
We're on all the social media channels. We have YouTube, TikTok,
Uh-huh.
Instagram, all of them.
Yeah. Or you can also reach him directly during his office hours on Sundays at 7, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And he will answer any questions you have. So
absolutely.
with that, have a great day, great evening, and great afternoon.
Thank
Until
you,
next
Anita.
time,